She was 6 months pregnant when her husband came home at midnight with another woman's lipstick on his neck. But here is what he did not expect. She did not scream.
How can you just stand there
She did
looking
not
at me
cry.
like that?
She did not beg him to stay.
It's your baby too,
Instead,
Caleb.
She disappeared. Within 72 hours, she had withdrawn every dollar from her personal account, deleted all social media,
Finally here.
disconnected her phone number,
Oh, she's
and drove
beautiful,
8 hours
sweetheart.
north without leaving
I
a
know.
single trace
I love
behind.
her so much.
Her
I
husband
told you to
hired
stay
a
away from
private
us. You can't just
investigator,
show up here.
I'm not
called
going anywhere.
everyone
I have
she
every
knew.
right to see my daughter.
even begged
Not
her
like
mother
this.
for information.
Not ever again.
But no one would tell him where his pregnant wife had gone.
Look at the fireflies.
And when he finally received the letter
It's so
about his
lovely watching
newborn
them
daughter,
play.
he had exactly 30 days to decide if he wanted to be a father. He let every single one of them pass. But what happened next, when they accidentally met face to face at a farmer's market 3 years later, with his mistress standing right beside him and his daughter in her arms, that moment changed everything. This is not just a story about betrayal. This is a story about what happens when a woman stops waiting to be chosen and starts choosing herself. Value statement. If you have ever been made to feel like you are not enough, if you have ever wondered whether walking away makes you weak or strong, this story will show you the truth. Sometimes the bravest thing you will ever do is close the door on someone who refuses to walk through it. Meaning of the story. This is for every woman who has been told she was giving up when she was really just waking up. For every mother who built a life with her own 2 hands when someone else walked away. For everyone who learned that choosing yourself is not selfish. It is survival. The coral lipstick on my husband's collar was not my shade. It was not even close. Naomi Cole stood in the kitchen of their Miami penthouse, one hand pressed against her swollen belly, the other gripping the granite counter so hard her knuckles had gone white. The floor-to-ceiling windows behind her framed the city skyline, amber and gold against the November darkness. 32 stories up, the world looked beautiful from here, peaceful, like nothing bad could ever touch them. But bad things had been touching them for months. She had just refused to see it. 6 months pregnant, and she could not remember the last time Caleb had touched her with anything resembling affection. Not the way he used to, anyway. Not the way he had during their honeymoon in Tuscany, when he could not keep his hands off her. Not the way he had on their 3rd anniversary, when he had surprised her with a weekend in the Keys, and they had made love 3 times before dinner. Now he barely looked at her. He looked, and when he did, his eyes slid past her belly like it was an inconvenience rather than a miracle. The clock on the microwave read 11:47. His dinner sat cold on the table for the 3rd night this week. Grilled salmon, roasted vegetables, the sparkling water he liked, still sweating in its glass. She had stopped calling after the 4th voicemail went unanswered. The excuses had evolved over the past 2 months. Client emergencies that demanded his immediate attention, property inspections that ran inexplicably late, investor meetings that somehow always stretched past midnight, even though no investor she had ever met wanted to discuss real estate deals at 1 in the morning. But tonight felt different. Tonight, something in her chest had cracked open, flooding her with a certainty she had been fighting for weeks. The certainty that her husband was not working late. The certainty that those ignored calls were not accidents or oversights. The certainty that her marriage was already over, and she was the last one to admit it. She had known, she realized now, deep down, in that place where women keep the truths they are not ready to face. She had known for weeks, maybe longer. The late nights that started right after she announced the pregnancy. The sudden obsession with the gym. The new cologne she did not recognize. The way he flinched when she reached for his phone. All the signs had been there. She had just chosen not to see them. The front door clicked open at 12:15. Naomi's heart stopped, then started again pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. She turned slowly from the window, her hands instinctively moving to cradle her belly, protecting the baby from what was coming, even though she did not know yet exactly what that would be. Caleb walked in wearing the same charcoal suit from this morning, but his tie was gone. His collar hung open, the top two buttons undone. His hair was slightly mussed, like someone had been running their fingers through it. And there, just below his ear, was a smudge of coral lipstick. Careless, almost defiant, like he had stopped trying to hide it. "You're still up." His voice carried no warmth, just mild irritation, as if her presence in their home was an inconvenience, as if she was the one who had done something wrong by waiting for him. Naomi turned fully to face him. Her reflection in the dark window behind her showed a woman she barely recognized, swollen, exhausted, eyes red from tears she had been fighting all night. This was not the woman who had walked down the aisle 3 years ago, radiant in white lace, believing every word of the vows they exchanged. Where were you? He did not look at her as he set his keys on the entry table. The same entry table where they had made love once, early in their marriage, when they could not even make it to the bedroom. Now it just held his keys and his wallet and his lies. Working. "I told you. Your shirt smells like perfume." The words hung in the air between them. Heavy, undeniable. She watched him carefully, cataloging every micro-expression, the slight tightening of his jaw, the way his shoulders stiffened almost imperceptibly, the split second of calculation in his eyes as he weighed his options. For a moment, she thought he might actually try to lie. She could see him running through the excuses in his head. A client who hugged too long, a colleague who wore too much fragrance, some plausible explanation that would buy him another few weeks of deception. Instead, he exhaled through his nose and met her eyes with something worse than guilt. Indifference. "I cannot do this anymore, Naomi." The baby kicked hard against her ribs, a sharp, sudden movement that made her gasp. She wrapped both arms around her stomach, as if she could shield her child from what was coming, as if her body could protect this tiny life from the devastation about to rain down on their world. "Cannot do what?" "This." He gestured vaguely at her, at the apartment, at their life together, at the expensive furniture and the designer kitchen and the view that cost them $8,000 a month. "You have been impossible since you got pregnant. Everything is a problem. You are tired. You are emotional. You need this. You need that. I feel like I am suffocating." Her voice came out steadier than she expected. "I am carrying your child, and I have been taking care of everything else. The bills, the mortgage, your doctor appointments that I have to remind you about, the nursery that I have been designing alone because you are never here." She took a breath, fighting to keep her voice level. "Meanwhile, you act like I am the villain because I still have a business to run. You have lipstick on your neck." Caleb touched the spot, looked at his fingers, then shrugged with a casualness that made her stomach turn, like they were discussing what to have for dinner. Like he was not about to detonate a bomb in the middle of their life. "Her name is Alyssa. She makes me feel alive again. The simplicity of it, the casual cruelty. It hit harder than any screaming match could have." Naomi felt the words land like physical blows, each one driving the air from her lungs. Alyssa. She had a name now. This woman who had stolen her husband. This woman who had been touching him, kissing him, doing things that were supposed to be reserved for their marriage. She was not just a suspicion anymore. She was real. She had a name. You are choosing her. It was not a question. She already knew the answer. Had known it, probably, from the moment she saw that lipstick stain on his collar. Caleb walked to the bar cart and poured himself 2 fingers of whiskey, the same Macallan she had bought him for his birthday last year when she still believed in them. He drank it like he was celebrating, like this confession was a relief rather than a betrayal. I am choosing to live, not just exist in this apartment watching you turn into someone I do not recognize. I did not change. Naomi heard her voice crack and hated herself for it, hated that he could still make her weak, still make her doubt herself. I am pregnant with your baby. You changed the second you saw those 2 lines. His voice rose now, months of resentment spilling out in a torrent she had not expected. Everything became about the pregnancy, about what you needed, what you could not do, how tired you were. When is the last time you asked about my day? When is the last time you smiled at me without looking exhausted? She wanted to scream that she was growing a human being, that her body was being rearranged from the inside, that she woke up every morning nauseous and fell asleep every night with her spine on fire, that she had given up wine and sushi and sleeping on her back and 100 other small pleasures because she was building their child, their future. But the words stuck in her throat because somewhere, buried under the anger, was a horrible recognition. She had stopped fighting for them, maybe because she had already felt him slipping away. Maybe because some part of her had known that no amount of effort could save a marriage that one person had already abandoned. So, that is it? Her voice cracked again. You are leaving? Caleb drained his whiskey on one swallow. I am going to stay with Alyssa for a while. We can figure out the details later. Details? She laughed, a broken sound that echoed off the high ceilings. Our baby is a detail now? He paused at the door, his back to her. For a second, she thought he might turn around, might remember the man who had proposed on a sunset cruise, champagne in hand and tears in his eyes, who had cried when they saw the ultrasound for the first time, who had held her hair back when morning sickness hit at the worst moments, who had promised forever with his grandmother's ring and his whole heart. But he just opened the door. I will send someone for my things next week. The door closed with a soft click that echoed louder than any slam. Naomi stood frozen in the kitchen, her reflection ghostly in the dark window. Outside, Miami glittered and pulsed with life. Cars and lights, and people living their ordinary Friday nights, completely unaware that her world had just ended. Inside, the apartment felt like a tomb. She walked to the bedroom in a daze, sat on the edge of the mattress, stared at Caleb's pillow, still dented from this morning, still smelling faintly of his shampoo. He had kissed her forehead before leaving, a perfunctory gesture, the kind of kiss you give when you are already gone but have not yet found the courage to say so. And something inside her simply stopped, not her heart, not her breath, but the part of her that had spent 6 years building a life with a man who had just walked out like she was nothing, like their marriage was nothing, like the baby growing inside her was nothing. The baby kicked again, harder this time, as if trying to remind her, you are not alone. I am here. I need you. Naomi placed both hands on her belly and whispered into the silence of the empty apartment. It is okay, sweetheart. We are going to be okay. But as she said it, she was not sure who she was trying to convince. At 2:30 in the morning, she was still awake when her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. He is with me now, just so you know. Attached was a photo. Caleb asleep in an unfamiliar bed, white sheets tangled around him. A young woman's arm draped possessively across his chest. Blonde, beautiful. Smiling at the camera with victory in her eyes. The mistress, Alyssa, sending proof of her conquest, rubbing salt in a wound that was still bleeding. Naomi stared at the image until her vision blurred. This woman looked maybe 24, Young enough to be impressed by Caleb's money and success, young enough to believe his lies about a wife who did not understand him, young enough to think she had won something worth having. She did not know yet that she was just a symptom, that Caleb would eventually get bored of her too, that men who left their pregnant wives rarely became better men for the women who helped them leave. But that was not Naomi's problem anymore. She set the phone face down on the nightstand, turned off the lamp, lay in the darkness with her hands on her belly. She did not cry. She did not scream. She just breathed. And somewhere, in that suffocating silence, a decision began to take root. Quiet, cold, and absolutely certain. If he wanted to live a life without her, fine. She would build a life where he no longer existed. Naomi woke to sunlight burning through the curtains and a text from her mother. "How is my grandbaby today? Lunch this week?" She stared at the message, her thumb hovering over the keyboard. How did you tell your mother that your husband had chosen someone else, that he had looked at you 6 months, pregnant with his child, and decided you were not worth the effort, that he had traded everything you built together for a woman young enough to still believe in fairy tales? She set the phone down without answering. The apartment felt different in daylight, colder somehow, even though the thermostat showed 72 degrees. Every surface held a memory that now felt like evidence of her own stupidity. The Italian leather couch they had bought after Caleb's first major hotel acquisition, celebrating with champagne and promises of a future full of more successes. The abstract painting he had surprised her with on their 4th anniversary, claiming he had noticed her admiring it in a gallery window. The coffee maker she had used alone this morning, while he probably woke up, tangled in sheets, that smelled like someone else's perfume. She had built her whole life around this man, around this apartment, around a future that no longer existed. Her phone buzzed again. Caleb this time. Need to talk about logistics. Can you find another place for a few months? Naomi read it 3 times, each pass making the words more absurd. He wanted her to leave, the apartment they had lived in for 4 years, the home where she had planned to bring their baby, the nursery she had spent months designing, choosing paint colors and furniture, and the perfect mobile to hang above the crib. He wanted her to leave so he could what? Move Alyssa in? Continue living his life as if she had never existed? Her fingers moved before her brain could stop them. This is my home too. The response came immediately. My name is on the lease. We can discuss it like adults, or make it complicated. Your choice. She threw the phone onto the couch cushions and walked to the bathroom, turned on the shower, let the water run until steam filled the room. Then she sat on the closed toilet lid and finally let herself cry. Not the quiet tears from last night. This was uglier, gasping, choking sobs that made her whole body shake. She cried until her throat burned and her eyes swelled and the baby kicked in protest at the chaos. She cried for the marriage she had believed in, for the husband she thought she knew, for the future she had been planning, for the nursery that might never be used, for the baby who would grow up without a father. When she emerged 20 minutes later, puffy-faced and exhausted, there was a voicemail from Caleb's mother. Naomi, sweetheart, Caleb mentioned you two are going through a rough patch. These things happen, especially with pregnancy hormones. Why don't you come to dinner Sunday? We can all talk through this as a family. Rough patch. As if he had not walked out. As if there was not another woman waiting in her place. As if pregnancy hormones were responsible for her husband's infidelity. Naomi deleted the message without responding. She spent the rest of Monday in a fog, called in sick to her part-time job at the interior design firm, where she had been working reduced hours since the 2nd trimester. Could not stomach food, even though she knew the baby needed her to eat, scrolled through her phone, looking at photos from their wedding, their honeymoon in Tuscany, last Christmas when everything still felt salvageable. There was a photo of them on the beach in Positano. She was laughing at something he had said, her head thrown back, his arm around her waist. They looked happy. They looked in love. They looked like people who would be together forever. How had everything fallen apart so completely? By Tuesday morning, something had shifted. The crying stopped. The desperate urge to call Caleb and beg him to remember who they had been, that stopped too. The hope that he might come to his senses, might realize what he was throwing away, might show up at the door with flowers and apologies, gone. In its place was clarity, cold and absolute. He had made his choice. Now she would make hers. She opened her laptop and created a new document. Titled it simply, Plan, Step 1, Money. Her personal checking account had $3,400. Not much, but enough. The joint account held significantly more, nearly $40,000 from Caleb's recent bonus, but touching it would alert him immediately. He would know she was planning something. He would ask questions. He would try to stop her. She drove to an ATM in a neighborhood she never visited and withdrew $2,000, the daily limit, cash that could not be traced, money that would get her far enough away that finding her would be difficult. Step 2. Medical records. She called Dr. Mitchell's office and requested copies of all her prenatal files. When the receptionist asked why, Naomi said she was considering a second opinion, wanted to get another doctor's perspective on some concerns she had. The receptionist did not push back. The records would be ready by Thursday. Step 3. Location. Her mother lived in Asheville, North Carolina, 8 hours north, tucked into the Blue Ridge Mountains, far from the humidity and drama of Miami. Ruth Cole had been widowed for 6 years and lived alone in a 3-bedroom house with a guest room she always kept made up. Just in case, she always said, just in case you ever need to come home. Naomi had thought she would never need to take her mother up on that offer. She had built a life here, a marriage, a career. She was supposed to raise her daughter in Miami, close to the beach, with a father who loved them both. But plans change, people change, and sometimes the only option left is the one you never expected to take. Ruth would be shocked. She would have questions, a lot of questions. But she would never turn away her daughter, never turn away her grandchild. That was the one thing Naomi knew for certain. Step 4. Disappear. No forwarding address, no social media updates, no trail for Caleb to follow. Block his number, block his family's numbers, block mutual friends who might report back to him, intentionally or not. Delete Instagram, where she had been posting pregnancy updates. Delete Facebook, where their wedding photos still lived. Erase every digital footprint that could lead him to her. Let him wonder where she went. Let him worry about whether she was okay. Let him feel even a fraction of the abandonment he had so casually inflicted on her. She was not doing this for revenge. She told herself that anyway. She was doing this for survival, for protection, for the baby who deserved a mother strong enough to walk away from someone who did not want them. Wednesday afternoon, Naomi packed 2 suitcases while Caleb was presumably at work, or with Alyssa. She did not know which, and she no longer cared. Into the first suitcase went maternity clothes, comfortable pants with stretchy waistbands, loose tops that accommodated her growing belly, a few nice outfits for job interviews if it came to that, underwear, socks, the fuzzy robe her mother had given her last Christmas. Into the second suitcase went documents, her birth certificate, social security card, insurance information, the prenatal records she had picked up from Dr. Mitchell's office, her passport, even though she had no plans to leave the country, her laptop, a few photos from before the marriage, before Caleb, before everything fell apart. She left behind everything that did not matter. The designer handbags he had bought her for birthdays and anniversaries, the jewelry, including the engagement ring she placed carefully on the kitchen counter, The framed photos that now felt like lies. She was folding a sweater, the gray cashmere one her mother had knitted for her 2 years ago, when her phone rang. Caleb. She almost did not answer. What was there left to say? But some masochistic part of her needed to hear his voice one more time, needed confirmation that the man she had married was truly gone. What? Jesus, Naomi. I have been trying to reach you. He sounded irritated, not concerned, not apologetic, just irritated, like she was a task he needed to check off his list. Did you get my text about the apartment? I got it. And I will be out by Friday. Silence on the other end. She could hear him processing this information. She imagined his face, the slight furrow of confusion. He had expected her to fight, to beg, to make this difficult. Okay? His voice was cautious now. Good. That is good. We can arrange a time for you to get the rest of your stuff once you are settled. Sure? Another pause. Are you okay? You sound weird. The question was so absurd she almost laughed. Here was a man who had abandoned his pregnant wife for his mistress, asking if she was okay. As if he had any right to ask. As if her well-being was still his concern. I am pregnant and my husband left me for a 24-year-old. How should I sound? Do not be dramatic. This is not permanent. We just need space to figure things out. There it was, the delusion that somehow, eventually, she would forgive him. That she would wait patiently while he explored his options. That, when he got bored of Alyssa, bored of the freedom, bored of the life, without responsibility, she would still be here, ready to take him back. Grateful for whatever scraps of attention he decided to throw her way. Where are you going to stay? He asked. Does it matter? I mean, you are still carrying my kid. I should probably know where you are. My kid. Not our kid. Not our baby. My kid. Like a possession. Like something that belonged to him rather than something they had created together. I will let you know. She lied. Naomi. She hung up, blocked his number, turned off her location services, deleted Instagram, where her last post was a photo of the nursery she had been designing, deleted Facebook, where 800 friends would probably hear Caleb's version of events and believe every word. Within 15 minutes, the pregnant wife had erased herself from the digital map of Caleb Cole's life. Thursday morning, she picked up her medical records, stopped at the bank, and withdrew the last 400 from her account, closing it entirely. Bought a prepaid phone at a convenience store, the kind that did not require identification or contracts. Transferred only 3 contacts into the new phone. Her mother, her doctor, and her childhood best friend, Simone Walker, who lived in Oregon and had never particularly liked Caleb. She texted Simone first. Cal and I are done. I am leaving Miami. Do not tell anyone where I am. I will explain later. Simone's response came in seconds, which meant she had been expecting this. Or at least was not surprised. Say less. I never trusted that man anyway. You need anything? Just silence. You got it. Love you, girl. Whatever you need. Then she called her mother. Ruth answered on the second ring, breathless, like she had been gardening or walking or doing any of the 100 activities that kept her busy in retirement. Naomi, sweetheart, I was starting to worry. You have not returned my texts. Mom. Her voice cracked despite her best efforts. Can I come home? The pause lasted only a heartbeat. Of course, what happened? I will tell you when I get there. I am leaving tomorrow morning. Tomorrow? Naomi, what is going on? Is the baby okay? The baby is fine. I just need to come home. Please, Mom, I just need you to say yes. Yes. Always yes. No matter what. You know that. Ruth's voice was fierce now, protective. Drive safe. Call me when you are on the road. I will have your room ready. Naomi exhaled for what felt like the first time in days. I love you. I love you more. See you soon, baby girl." That night, Naomi walked through the apartment one final time. She did not take photos, did not linger over memories, did not let herself feel the weight of everything she was leaving behind. This place had been a home, but homes were built by people who stayed. Caleb had walked out that door 4 days ago and had not come back, had not even tried. This was just an apartment now. Expensive square footage with a nice view. She stood at the window where she had been standing when he confessed, looked out at the Miami skyline one last time. All those lights, all those people living their lives, completely unaware that hers had been shattered. Somewhere out there, Caleb was with Alyssa, maybe at her apartment, maybe at some restaurant, celebrating their freedom, maybe making plans for a future that did not include a pregnant wife or a baby or any of the responsibilities he had decided were too heavy to carry. He had made his choice. Now she was making hers. At 5 in the morning, on Friday, Naomi loaded her car, a modest Honda Accord she had bought before the marriage, when she still had her own money and her own name on the title. The car was 7 years old now, but reliable. She had never traded it in for something flashier, even when Caleb had suggested it. Something about keeping this one piece of her old life had felt important. Now she understood why. The sky was still dark, the city sleeping off another night of excess. The parking garage was empty except for her. The sound of her suitcase wheels echoed off the concrete walls as she made her way to her car. She did not leave a note, did not turn back for one last look. Just started the engine, pulled onto the empty street, and drove north toward a future Caleb Cole would never be part of. Her phone, the old one, the one he knew, she left on the kitchen counter. Screen dark and silent. The last thing he would see if he came looking. Nothing, just absence, just proof that she had existed, and then chose not to. The drive to Asheville took 8 hours. 8 hours of interstate highways and gas station breaks, and her back screaming in protest. 8 hours of the baby doing gymnastics against her bladder, forcing her to stop every hour. 8 hours of talk radio and audiobooks, and long stretches of silence where she let herself think about everything that had happened. She cried somewhere in Georgia. Not the ugly, gasping sobs from the bathroom, just quiet tears that slid down her cheeks as she drove. Grief for the life she was leaving behind. Fear of the life she was driving toward. Relief that she was finally doing something instead of waiting for Caleb to decide her fate. She stopped for lunch at a diner in South Carolina, ordered a grilled cheese sandwich and tomato soup because it was the only thing that sounded appealing. The waitress, an older woman with kind eyes and a name tag that said Loretta, noticed her belly immediately. "When are you due, honey? February? Boy or girl? Do not know yet." Wanted to be surprised. Loretta smiled. "Well, either way, you are going to be a wonderful mama. I can tell." Naomi was not sure how she could tell anything about her, but the words were kind and she needed kindness right now. "Thank you." She arrived in Asheville at 6 in the evening, exhausted and aching and more grateful than she had ever been in her life. The Blue Ridge Mountains rose in the distance, layers of blue and purple against the fading light. The air smelled different here, cleaner, cooler, like pine trees and wood smoke and possibility. Ruth's house sat at the end of a quiet street, a white Victorian with a wraparound porch and window boxes full of late-season flowers. The lights were on, warm yellow light spilling from the windows, welcoming her home. Ruth must have been watching for her because she was on the porch before Naomi even parked the car, wearing the same blue cardigan she always wore, her silver hair pulled back in its familiar low bun, her face a mixture of relief and worry. The moment Naomi stepped out of the car, Her mother's arms were around her, careful of the belly, fierce with protection. "You are home now," Ruth whispered into her hair. "You are safe." Naomi had not realized how much she needed to hear those words until they broke something loose inside her. She cried then, holding on to her mother, like she was 6 years old again, like the world had finally become too big and too scary, and the only safe place left was her mother's arms. "I am so sorry, Mom. I am so sorry to just show up like this. Do not apologize. Never apologize for coming home. That is what home is for." They stood like that for a long time, two women on a porch in the growing darkness, holding each other up. Caleb did not notice she was gone until Saturday afternoon. He had spent Friday night at Alyssa's apartment, a trendy loft in Wynwood with exposed brick and string lights that she thought made everything look aesthetic. They had ordered Thai food, watched some Netflix series she was obsessed with, had sex that felt more like performance than connection, though Caleb did not want to admit that to himself. Saturday morning, Alyssa made mimosas and talked about a music festival in Tulum. "We should go. Just get away from all this stress, you know?" Caleb had nodded absently, checking his phone. No messages from Naomi. Good. Maybe she was finally accepting reality. Maybe she had realized that fighting him would only make things harder for everyone. Maybe she was packing her things like a reasonable adult. It was not until 3 in the afternoon, when he drove back to the penthouse to grab some work files, that the wrongness hit him. The apartment was too quiet. Not the quiet of someone sleeping or reading in another room. The quiet of complete absence. The kind of quiet that settles into a space when no one has been there for days. "Naomi?" His voice echoed off the walls. Nothing. He walked through the living room, kitchen, noticed the cold dinner still on the table, now covered in a film of dried residue, noticed her phone on the counter. That was strange. Naomi never left without her phone. He moved to the bedroom. The closet doors were open, hangers bare where her clothes had been. Her toiletries gone from the bathroom, the framed photo of them at Niagara Falls, the one she had insisted on keeping on the nightstand, missing. His chest tightened. She had actually left. That was when he saw it. Her engagement ring on the kitchen counter, sitting next to her abandoned phone. The diamond caught the afternoon light, winking at him like an accusation. He picked up the phone, pressed the power button. Dead battery. Caleb plugged it in and waited for it to boot up. His mind racing through possibilities. She had gone to stay with a friend. She had checked into a hotel. She was making a point, trying to scare him, and would be back by tomorrow. When the phone finally came to life, the lock screen showed 47 missed calls, most of them from him over the past few days. Texts asking where she was, growing increasingly frantic. He tried her passcode. It still worked. Inside, nothing unusual. No dramatic goodbye texts drafted and unsent. No clues to where she had gone. No forwarding address, or flight confirmation, or hotel reservation. He called her number from his own phone. "The number you have dialed is no longer in service." His stomach dropped. He tried again. Same message. She had disconnected her phone. Actually disconnected it. Not just blocked him. Not just turned it off. The number no longer existed. His pregnant wife had cut contact completely and vanished without a trace. Caleb stood in the kitchen, her dead phone in one hand, his own pressed to his ear, and felt the first real tremor of panic. By Sunday morning, the panic had metastasized into full-blown dread. He had called everyone he could think of. Her coworkers, who said she had called in sick all week and they had not heard from her since. Her boss, who sounded annoyed that Caleb was bothering her on the weekend and said Naomi had requested an indefinite leave of absence. The two friends Naomi still saw occasionally, both of whom claimed they had not heard from her. One of them, a woman named Jessica, had paused a beat too long before answering, which meant she was lying, which meant she knew something. But when he pushed, she hung up on him. He drove to the interior design firm where Naomi worked, even though it was closed, peered through the windows like some kind of stalker, as if she might materialize at her desk, as if this was all a misunderstanding, and she had just gone to work early and forgotten to tell him. Nothing. The office was dark, empty, mocking him with its normalcy. Alyssa was getting irritated. Why are you so obsessed with this? She left. That is what you wanted, right? I wanted space. I did not want her to vanish. She is pregnant, not kidnapped. She probably went to stay with family or something. Give her a few days to cool off and she will come back with her tail between her legs, begging you to take her back. She does not talk to her family much. It was a lie, but Caleb realized, with growing horror, that he did not actually know the truth. Naomi had mentioned her mother a few times over the years, but where did she live? North Carolina, he thought. Or was it Virginia? Some city in the mountains? Asheville? Roanoke? He could not remember. The details had always seemed unimportant when he had access to Naomi herself. When she was right there, answering his questions, filling in the blanks, keeping track of the things he could not be bothered to remember. Now, those details felt like the only things that mattered. Monday, Caleb did something he had sworn he would never do. He called Naomi's mother. He did not have Ruth Cole's number saved in his own phone. In 6 years of marriage, he had only met the woman twice. Once at the wedding, once at a Christmas dinner 3 years ago. He had always meant to visit more, to make more of an effort with his wife's family, but somehow there was always something more important. He found Ruth's number in the contacts on Naomi's abandoned phone. It rang 4 times before a woman's voice answered, weary and guarded. Hello, Mrs. Cole? This is Caleb, Naomi's husband. A long pause. The kind of pause that told him everything he needed to know. I know who you are. The ice in her voice could have frozen the Miami sun. I am trying to reach Naomi. She is not answering her phone, and I just want to make sure she is okay. The baby and everything. I am worried. Another pause. Then, is she okay? Yes, she is fine. So, she is with you? I did not say that. Caleb's jaw clenched. He could feel his control slipping, the panic turning into frustration. Look, I know things have been difficult between us, but she is carrying my child. I have a right to know where she is. A right? Ruth's laugh was bitter and sharp. You had a marriage, Caleb. You had a pregnant wife who loved you. You walked out on her for another woman. And now you are worried about rights? Mrs. Cole, please, do not call this number again. The line went dead. Caleb stared at his phone, rage and fear battling for dominance. Ruth knew where Naomi was. She had to, but she was not going to tell him. His pregnant wife had vanished, and her mother was helping her stay hidden. He tried calling back immediately. It went straight to voicemail. He tried again an hour later. Same result. By the end of the day, he had called 7 times. None of his calls were answered. By Tuesday, Caleb could not focus on work. He had missed 2 meetings and snapped at his assistant when she asked about rescheduling. His business partner, Greg Hartwell, pulled him aside after lunch. What is going on with you, man? You look like hell. Nothing. Just personal stuff. Personal stuff is making you lose a $4 million contract. We had the Reynolds Group ready to sign and you missed the meeting entirely. Talk to me. Caleb exhaled, ran a hand through his hair. Naomi left. Greg raised an eyebrow. Left? Or just staying with friends for a bit left? I do not know. She will not answer her phone. Changed her number, actually. Her mom will not tell me where she is. Nobody will tell me anything. Greg was quiet for a moment, Maybe that is your answer, dude. What do you mean? She does not want to be found. That is pretty clear. Maybe you need to respect that. She is 6 months pregnant with my kid. I cannot just let her disappear. Then she will reach out when the baby comes. What else can you do? Greg shrugged. You cannot force someone to talk to you. And showing up uninvited, wherever she is, that is a good way to end up with a restraining order. The question haunted him for the rest of the day. What could he do? What options did he have left? Wednesday morning, Caleb called a private investigator. Raymond Torres was a grizzled ex-cop who charged $200 an hour and had a reputation for finding people who did not want to be found. They met at a coffee shop in Brickell, and Caleb laid out everything. The separation, the disappearance, Ruth's refusal to help. I need to know where she is, Caleb said. I need to know she and the baby are okay. Torres took notes on a small pad, his expression neutral. When did she disappear? Friday morning. Almost a week ago. Any credit card activity since then? None that I can see. We had a joint account, but she has not touched it. She had a personal account too, but she closed it the day before she left. Social media? Deleted everything. Instagram, Facebook, all of it. Her accounts are just gone. Torres leaned back, studying Caleb with eyes that had seen too much. Your wife sounds smart. Most people cannot help themselves. They check their email from a new location, use their debit card at a gas station, post something vague on social media for attention. If she has gone this dark this fast, she planned it. This was not impulsive. Can you find her or not? I can try, but I need you to understand no credit card activity under her name means she is either using cash or someone else's accounts. No new address registered with the post office means she is probably staying with family. No utility bills, no lease agreements, nothing in the public record. Torres paused, tapping his pen against the pad. If I had to guess, she is at her mother's place, using that address for everything, keeping her own name off the books entirely. Her mother lives in North Carolina, Asheville, I think. You think? Torres raised an eyebrow. Caleb felt shame burn through him. I never paid attention to the details. Torres nodded slowly, no judgment in his expression, but plenty of understanding. I could dig deeper, run background checks on her relatives, stake out the mother's address, see if your wife's car shows up. But that is going to cost you significantly more. Surveillance is not cheap. And honestly, if she has gone to these lengths to disappear, she does not want to be found. Showing up uninvited could backfire legally, especially with a pregnant woman involved. Courts take that kind of thing very seriously. Caleb sat with that for a long moment. The idea of showing up at Ruth's door, forcing a confrontation, dragging Naomi back into his orbit through sheer persistence and expensive investigators. But what would that accomplish? She had made her position clear, and forcing himself into her life, stalking her essentially, would only prove her right about who he was, would only confirm every terrible thing she probably believed about him. How much have I already spent with today's consultation? About 600. Stop the search, Caleb said quietly. Torres raised an eyebrow. You sure? She does not want to be found, and I am not going to hunt her down like some kind of stalker. I am not doing that. Caleb stood up, reaching for his wallet to pay the bill. Whatever she thinks of me, I am not that person. After Torres left, Caleb sat in the coffee shop for another hour, staring at his phone. He had lost her, not because he could not find her, because she had made sure he could not. And the worst part? He was not sure he blamed her. Asheville welcomed Naomi with rain, not the violent summer storms of Miami, all thunder and lightning and drama, just a steady mountain drizzle that misted the windshield and softened the edges of everything. The kind of rain that felt like a cleansing, like the sky itself was washing away the old life and making room for something new. She had arrived Friday evening, exhausted from 8 hours of driving with only gas station breaks. Her back was screaming in protest. The baby had been doing gymnastics against her bladder for the last 100 miles. She had not eaten anything since that grilled cheese in South Carolina, and even that felt like it had happened in another lifetime. But when she pulled into her mother's driveway and saw Ruth waiting on the porch, silhouetted by the warm light spilling from inside, none of that mattered anymore. She was home. Now, 3 weeks later, she was starting to remember what normal felt like. The guest room had become hers. Ruth had cleared out the closet, moving boxes of old photo albums and Christmas decorations to the attic, had bought prenatal vitamins and put them on the nightstand, had found a local doctor who had an opening and made the first appointment herself. Dr. Sarah Reese was younger than her Miami physician, maybe mid-30s, with kind eyes and zero judgment when Naomi explained she had relocated suddenly and needed to transfer her care. "Baby looks healthy," Dr. Reese said at the first appointment, moving the ultrasound wand across Naomi's belly. "Strong heartbeat, good positioning. You are doing everything right." Everything right. The words had made Naomi want to laugh. She had lost her marriage, her home, her entire life plan. She was living in her childhood bedroom at 32, pregnant and alone, starting over with nothing but 2 suitcases and her mother's generosity. But sure, she was doing everything right. Still, there was something healing about Asheville's slower rhythm. Ruth worked part-time at a bookstore downtown, so Naomi had the house to herself most mornings. She started walking the neighborhood when the weather allowed, gradually building her stamina back up. The mountain air felt cleaner than Miami's humidity, easier to breathe, like her lungs could finally expand all the way. She found herself noticing things she had not noticed in years. The way the light changed throughout the day, painting the mountains in different shades of blue and gold. The sound of birds in the morning, actual birds, not just seagulls fighting over garbage. The smell of her mother's coffee, brewing at 6 a.m., the same brand she had been drinking since Naomi was a child. Small things, ordinary things, but they added up to something that felt almost like peace. She had not told anyone except Simone where she was. Her phone, the new prepaid one, held exactly 5 contacts. She had deleted social media entirely, which meant she had no idea what Caleb was doing or saying or thinking. And for the first time in weeks, that felt like a relief rather than a loss. But not everyone was supportive. Ruth's brother, Uncle Frank, had called the second week. Ruth had tried to deflect, but Frank had insisted on speaking to Naomi directly. "So you just left?" His voice carried that particular judgment only family could deliver, without even trying. Not even attempting to work things out? Naomi gripped the phone tighter. "He cheated on me, Uncle Frank, while I was pregnant. Marriage is hard, Naomi. You think your aunt and I did not have rough patches? Everyone goes through difficult times. You kids these days just give up at the first sign of trouble." He walked out first. "He told me he chose someone else, and you made sure he could not come back. That is on you, not him." Frank sighed, heavy with disapproval. "Your father would be ashamed of you giving up like this. Not even fighting for your family." The words hit like a physical blow. Her father had died when she was 22, before she ever met Caleb. He had never gotten to walk her down the aisle, had never gotten to meet his grandchild, and now Uncle Frank was invoking his memory to shame her for protecting herself. Naomi ended the call without responding, hands shaking, tears burning behind her eyes. Ruth found her crying in the bathroom 10 minutes later. What did Frank say? That Dad would be ashamed of me? Ruth's face hardened. Her jaw set, in that way Naomi recognized from childhood, the look that meant someone had crossed a line. Your father would be proud of you for protecting yourself and his grandchild. Frank is an idiot who has never had an original thought in his life. He stayed in a miserable marriage for 40 years because he was too scared to leave, and now he thinks everyone should suffer the same way. Ignore him. But the word stuck. Giving up, not fighting for your family. Was she running away or running towards something better? Some nights, lying in bed with her hands on her belly, she was not entirely sure. If you are listening to this story and you have ever been told you are giving up for leaving a bad situation, I want you to hear something. Walking away from someone who hurts you is not giving up. It is choosing yourself. And sometimes choosing yourself is the bravest thing you will ever do. A few days later, Ruth's neighbor Pauline stopped by with a casserole. She was an older woman, maybe 70, with silver hair and a no-nonsense attitude. She noticed Naomi's belly immediately. "When are you due, honey?" "February. And the father? Is he in the picture?" Naomi hesitated, then said simply, "He is not." Pauline had nodded with the knowing sympathy of someone who had heard that story before. No follow-up questions, no judgment, no attempt to convince her that she needed a man to be complete. "Well, you have got your mama. And that is worth more than most husbands anyway." The nights were harder. That was when the doubt crept in, when Naomi lay in bed with her hands on her belly, wondering if she had made the right choice, if she should have stayed and fought for her marriage, if there was something she could have done differently, if Caleb was looking for her, regretting everything, desperate to make it right. Then she would remember the coral lipstick on his neck, the casual cruelty of "I am choosing to live." The photo Alyssa had sent at 2 in the morning, victorious and vicious, and the doubt would harden back into resolve. She had also made an unexpected friend. Elise Thornton worked at the bookstore with Ruth, a woman in her early 40s with silver streaking through dark hair and a dry sense of humor that cut through nonsense effortlessly. She had 2 teenage sons, Mason and Tyler, and an ex-husband she referred to only as "the mistake I made at 22. She had invited Naomi to a prenatal yoga class one Saturday, and somehow they had fallen into an easy rhythm. Coffee after class, walks through downtown, conversations that never felt forced or obligatory. Elise did not pry into Naomi's situation beyond the basics. She understood, without being told, that some stories took time to tell, and she never offered unsolicited advice, which Naomi appreciated more than she could say. "You are glowing," Elise said one afternoon as they walked through Grove Park, autumn leaves crunching underfoot. "That whole pregnancy glow thing, it is real on you," Naomi laughed. "I feel like a beached whale, a gorgeous beached whale. Own it." They stopped at a bench overlooking the city. The mountains rose in layers of blue and gold. The air was crisp with approaching November. Naomi felt the baby shift, pressing against her ribs. "Can I ask you something personal?" Elise said carefully. "Go ahead. Do you ever regret leaving?" Naomi considered the question. A month ago, she would have said no immediately, defensively, without even thinking about it. But now, with distance and time, the answer was more complicated. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I had stayed, if I had fought harder, demanded couples therapy, made him choose in a different way. She paused, watching a bird hop across the grass. But then I remember the look on his face when he told me he had chosen to live, like I was a cage he had finally escaped. And I think no. I do not regret leaving someone who saw me that way. Elise nodded slowly. My ex used to say I was suffocating him. Turned out he was suffocating himself with his own issues and just needed someone to blame. She smiled without humor. Men are real good at making their failures someone else's fault. Do you ever talk to him? Only about the boys, and only through text. 5 years divorced, and I still want to throw my phone every time his name pops up. Does it get easier? The anger? Yeah, eventually. The disappointment sticks around longer. Elise looked at her, really looked. But the freedom? That makes it worth it. You will see. Naomi hoped she was right. The contractions started at 2 in the morning on November 7th. Naomi woke with a gasp, her hands flying to her belly. For a moment, she was not sure what had awoken her. Then another wave hit, and she understood. This was it. The baby was coming. "Mom!" she called out, her voice shakier than she wanted it to be. "Mom, I think it is time." Ruth appeared in the doorway within seconds, already pulling on a cardigan. Her face was calm, but alert. The face of a woman who had done this before. How far apart? I do not know. I just woke up. Okay. Breathe. Time the next one. The next contraction came 7 minutes later, then 6, then 4. They moved with practiced efficiency. Hospital bag, already packed and waiting by the door, car keys on the hook. Ruth calling Dr. Reese's answering service, while Naomi breathed through another contraction in the passenger seat. The drive to Mission Hospital took 15 minutes. By the time they arrived, the contractions were 4 minutes apart, and Naomi's calm was fraying at the edges. A nurse named Joy Brennan wheeled her into a delivery room and helped her into a gown. She was an older woman with a gentle voice and hands that had clearly done this thousands of times. "You are doing great, honey. How far dilated were you at your last appointment?" 3 centimeters. Well, let us see where we are now. The next 6 hours blurred together, contractions that felt like her body was trying to turn itself inside out. Ruth holding her hand, coaching her breathing, reminding her that she was strong enough to do this. Dr. Reese arriving at 6 in the morning with coffee and encouragement. The decision to use an epidural when the pain became unbearable. And then, at 8:43 in the morning, a sound that changed everything. The sharp, angry cry of a newborn. "It is a girl," Dr. Reese said, placing the baby on Naomi's chest. A perfect, healthy girl. Naomi looked down at the tiny, furious creature in her arms. Red-faced, covered in vernix, eyes scrunched shut against the brightness of the world. Absolutely beautiful. "Hi, baby," she whispered. "I am your mom." The baby quieted at her voice, blinking up with unfocused dark eyes, and Naomi understood, for the first time, why people said love at first sight was real. She had built this human, carried her through heartbreak and uncertainty and fear, and now she was here. Breathing, warm, alive, hers. Ruth stood beside them, tears streaming down her face. "She is perfect, sweetheart. What is her name?" Naomi had thought about this for weeks, considered family names, meaningful words, anything that felt significant enough for the gravity of the moment. But in the end, the answer was simple. Lily. Her name is Lily Ruth Cole. After you. Ruth's voice broke. "After me? You saved us both. It only felt right." For the next hour, Naomi held her daughter, while nurses bustled around them, while Ruth took photos, while the reality of motherhood settled over her like a weight and a gift simultaneously. The nurse returned with paperwork. "We need information for the birth certificate. Father's name?" Naomi looked at Lily's sleeping face, at the tiny fingers curled around her thumb, at this perfect creature who deserved everything good in the world. "Just put my name. She is mine." The nurse hesitated. "You are sure? You can always amend it later if circumstances change." "I am sure." The space where Caleb's name should have been would remain blank, and Naomi was at peace with that. The first weeks of motherhood were the hardest thing she had ever done. Lily needed her every 2 hours around the clock. Sleep became a distant memory, something other people did. people without newborns. Her body was still healing from the delivery. Her hormones were everywhere, making her cry at commercials and laugh at nothing and feel every emotion with devastating intensity. "Is it supposed to be this hard?" she asked Ruth one morning, Lily screaming against her shoulder despite being fed, changed, and burped. Ruth smiled with the knowing exhaustion of someone who had survived it. Every single minute. "And then one day, you will miss it. I cannot imagine missing this." "You will. I promise." Ruth had been a lifesaver those first weeks, moving the bassinet into Naomi's room, bringing water and snacks during midnight feedings, holding Lily so Naomi could shower for 10 precious minutes, reminding her, when she felt like a failure, that every mother felt this way and that it did not mean she was doing anything wrong. Elise had warned her about this too. "Fourth trimester is brutal," she had said over coffee 2 weeks before the birth. "Your hormones are everywhere. You are healing. The baby is adjusting. Give yourself permission to fall apart a little. It does not mean you are weak. It means you are human." So Naomi did. She fell apart. She cried while folding tiny onesies, cried when Lily smiled in her sleep, cried watching Ruth rock her granddaughter while humming off key lullabies, cried in the shower, cried in the car, cried at 3 in the morning when Lily would not stop fussing and Naomi felt like the worst mother in the world. And sometimes, late at night, when the house was quiet except for Lily's breathing, Naomi cried because Caleb would never know this, would never see his daughter's face, or feel the weight of her in his arms, would never hear her first cry, or her first laugh, or her first word. That grief surprised her, not for herself, but for Lily. For the father-daughter relationship that would never exist because he had chosen poorly and she had chosen self-preservation. 6 weeks after the birth, Naomi consulted an attorney. Jennifer Patterson was a no-nonsense woman in her 50s with silver hair and sharp eyes. She specialized in family law and came highly recommended by one of Ruth's friends. "You have a few options," Jennifer explained, spreading papers across her desk. "You can pursue child support, which you are entitled to regardless of your relationship status. You can seek sole custody, which given his abandonment should not be difficult, or you can do neither and simply move forward with your life. What would you recommend? That depends on what you want. If you want him out of your life completely, we need to notify him of the birth and give him a window to respond. If he does not contest custody within 30 days, you have full legal rights. No strings, no complications, no him. And if he does contest, then we fight. But honestly, men who abandon pregnant wives rarely show up to fight for custody. It is too much work, too much responsibility, everything they were running from in the first place." Naomi thought about this, about Caleb, about the man who had walked out without looking back. Would he fight for Lily? Would he even want to? She did not think so. But she had been wrong about him before. Send the notification. Give him his 30 days. Let him decide if he wants to be a father. The letter went out the following week. In Miami, Caleb received it on a Wednesday afternoon in December. He was in a meeting with potential investors when his assistant knocked on the conference room door. "I am sorry to interrupt, but there is a courier here who says it is urgent." Caleb excused himself, irritated. In the lobby stood a man with a clipboard and a manila envelope marked confidential. "Caleb Cole?" "That is me. Sign here." He signed, took the envelope, and waited until he was back in his office to open it. Inside were legal documents from a firm in North Carolina, Patterson and Associates, family law. His heart stopped. The cover letter was brief and devastating. "Dear Mr. Cole, We represent Naomi Elizabeth Cole in matters relating to the dissolution of your marriage and matters of child custody. Please be advised that on November 7th, Mrs. Cole gave birth to a healthy daughter. She is formally notifying you of the birth as required by North Carolina state law. However, Mrs. Cole has elected not to pursue child support, visitation, or any form of custody arrangement at this time. She requests that you respect her decision and refrain from contact. If you wish to contest this arrangement or pursue parental rights, please have your attorney contact our office within 30 days. Attached was a copy of the birth certificate. Name: Lily Ruth Cole. Date of birth: November 7th. Mother: Naomi Elizabeth Cole. Father: blank. The space where his name should have been, the line that would have connected him legally to his daughter. Empty, as if he did not exist, as if he had never mattered. Caleb read the letter again, then again, his hands trembling. A daughter. He had a daughter named Lily, who was 6 weeks old, and he had missed everything. The birth, the first cry, the first night home, every single moment that defined early fatherhood. And Naomi had done it deliberately. Not out of spite, the letter made clear, but out of choice. She did not want his money, did not want his involvement, did not want him. The rejection was so absolute it felt physical. He had 30 days to decide. 30 days to fight for parental rights. 30 days to become the father he should have been from the beginning. The deadline came and went. Caleb drafted responses, deleted them, picked up the phone to call an attorney, set it down again, drove halfway to the airport before turning around. In the end, he did nothing. And nothing, it turned out, was its own kind of answer. 6 months after the deadline passed, Naomi's life had found a rhythm. She had taken a part-time position at a design firm in downtown Asheville. They had been looking for someone to handle residential consultations, and her portfolio, even outdated by 2 years, had impressed them enough to take a chance. The pay was modest, but it came with flexibility she desperately needed. She could bring Lily to the office when necessary, could work from home 3 days a week, could leave early for pediatrician appointments without guilt trips or passive-aggressive emails. Her boss, Jenna Crawford, was a woman in her 50s who had raised 3 kids while building the firm from nothing. She understood that motherhood and career were not competing priorities. They were intertwined realities that required accommodation, not apology. "How is the Morrison project coming?" Jenna asked during their weekly check-in. Lily content in a playpen in the corner. "Good. They approved the kitchen redesign. I am sourcing countertop samples this week." "And you are still okay with the timeline?" "Absolutely. Lily's sleep schedule is finally consistent, so I can focus during nap times." Jenna smiled. "You are doing great work, Naomi. Do not think I have not noticed." The validation felt foreign. Good, but foreign. Caleb had never asked about her work beyond surface-level interest, had never celebrated her wins or supported her growth. She had forgotten what it felt like to be seen professionally, not just as someone's wife or someone's mother. Lily was 8 months old now, crawling everywhere, babbling consonant sounds that were not quite words, but were definitely communication, destroying any illusion Naomi had about baby-proofing being optional. She had her mother's dark curls and her father's serious expression, though Naomi tried not to think about that second part too often. "She has got your energy," Jenna said one afternoon, watching Lily attempt to climb out of the playpen. "She gets that from her grandmother." Naomi laughed. "Not from me. I was apparently a very calm baby." "Please. You run your own projects and raise her solo. That takes plenty of energy." But the piece was about to shatter. It started innocently enough. Ruth's sister Claire lived in Tampa, just 2 hours from Miami. She had been asking for months to meet Lily. "Just 3 days," Ruth had suggested. Claire has that big house on the water. Lily can play in the yard. You need a break from routine. Naomi had hesitated. Tampa was close enough to Miami to feel dangerous. Close enough that she might run into someone who knew Caleb. Close enough that word might get back to him about where she was living. But Lily was 10 months old now, and Ruth was right. They both needed a change of scenery. So they packed the car on a Friday morning in August and drove south. What Naomi did not know was that Claire had mentioned her at a charity luncheon 2 weeks earlier, seated next to Diane Cole, Caleb's mother. Ruth says Naomi is doing wonderfully, Claire had said, not realizing the full context of what she was revealing. The baby is thriving. Lily, I think her name is. She is apparently crawling now, getting into everything. Diane had frozen, her fork halfway to her mouth. Crawling? She is crawling? Oh yes, quite the little explorer, Ruth says. Such a joy to have them in the house. Claire had continued eating, oblivious to the bomb she had just detonated. Diane had spent the rest of the luncheon in a daze, her mind racing through implications and possibilities. That evening, Diane had called Caleb for the first time in 3 months. You need to tell me the truth about all of it. So he did. The abandonment, the affair, the birth, the deadline, the choice to walk away. Everything he had been hiding, everything he had been avoiding, came pouring out in a confession that lasted nearly an hour. Diane listened in silence, and when he finished, her voice was cold. You have a daughter who is crawling, Caleb, learning the world, taking her first steps toward becoming a person, and you chose not to be there for any of it. I chose what I thought was best. You chose what was easiest, just like you did when you left Naomi, just like you have done your entire life when things got difficult. Diane's voice cracked. I did not raise you to be this person. Mom, do not call me until you have figured out how to take responsibility for what you have done. And I do not mean paying child support or sending birthday cards. I mean actually confronting the fact that you destroyed a family because you were too selfish to do the hard work of being a husband and father. She hung up. And 2 weeks later, fate brought them all to the same farmer's market in Tampa. Sunday morning at the downtown Tampa Farmers Market was supposed to be peaceful. Live music drifted from a stage near the entrance. Fresh produce and handmade crafts filled booth after booth. Families wandered the aisles, sampling local honey and organic vegetables. Lily was delighting in all the colors and sounds from her carrier on Naomi's chest, reaching out to grab at everything within range. Claire had promised it would be relaxing, family-friendly, a perfect Sunday morning activity. What Claire had not mentioned was that she had casually told her friend Diane about the market, and Diane had mentioned it to Caleb, who happened to be in Tampa meeting with investors. The Sandersons, Richard, and Margaret, a $15 million hotel deal that could save Caleb's struggling business. And Alyssa had insisted on coming. I deserve to be there, she had said that morning, applying lipstick in the hotel mirror. You have been avoiding me for weeks. This is my chance to show you what a good partner I can be. Caleb had not had the energy to argue. He was exhausted. The business was failing. His mother was not speaking to him. He had a daughter he had never met, and probably never would. What difference did it make if Alyssa tagged along? Naomi was examining handmade pottery when she heard it. A voice she had spent a year trying to forget. She turned before her brain could stop her. And there he was, Caleb Cole, 30 feet away, holding a basket of vegetables, talking to an older couple who looked like investors. And beside him, perfectly polished, smiling with poisonous sweetness, was Alyssa. Their eyes met across the crowd. Everything stopped. The market noise faded. The heat disappeared. For one suspended moment, it was just the two of them and the weight of everything unsaid. Caleb's face went through a series of expressions. Shock, recognition, pain, something that might have been hope. Then his eyes dropped to the carrier on Naomi's chest, to Lily, his daughter, the one he had never met, the one whose existence he had chosen to ignore. Dark curls visible above the carrier's edge, one small hand gripping Naomi's shirt. Those serious eyes, studying the world with intense focus. Caleb went white. Time seemed to slow down. Naomi watched Caleb's face change as he processed what he was seeing. His daughter, the child he had abandoned, the baby he had chosen not to fight for. Lily was oblivious, of course, 10 months old and fascinated by the colorful booth displays around them. She had no idea that the man staring at her from across the crowd was her father. Had no idea that this moment was about to change everything. Alyssa followed Caleb's gaze. Her expression shifted from confusion to calculation to something uglier. Recognition. Understanding. "Oh my God," Alyssa said, loud enough to carry across the crowd. "Is that your—" "Do not," Naomi said sharply. The word came out harder than she intended, edged with a year of suppressed fury. But Caleb was already moving forward, the investors forgotten, muscle memory overriding common sense. He looked like a man in a trance, drawn towards something he could not resist. "Naomi," his voice cracked on her name. "I just need to—" Ruth appeared beside Naomi instantly, protective and furious. Her mother had spent decades perfecting that particular expression, and she deployed it now with devastating effect. "You need to leave, now. I just want to see her. Just for a second, please." "You lost the right to ask that question." Naomi's voice was ice, cold and sharp and completely controlled. "Check the birth certificate. There is no father listed. Just me." Caleb flinched, like she had slapped him, the words landing exactly where she intended them to land. The older couple, Richard and Margaret Sanderson, had stopped browsing and were watching the scene unfold with visible discomfort. This was not the professional meeting they had been expecting. "Caleb," Richard said, carefully. "Is everything all right?" Alyssa stepped forward before Caleb could respond, her voice dripping with false concern, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. "This is his ex-wife, and apparently his child that he has never met. Quite the situation, is it not?" "Alyssa, shut up," Caleb hissed. "Why? It is the truth." She turned to Naomi, eyes bright with malice. "You know, he has been a wreck over you. Cannot sleep, cannot focus, drives his business partner crazy. You have really done a number on him." "Good," Naomi said flatly. Richard's wife touched her husband's arm, murmuring something. Richard's expression had shifted from uncomfortable to coldly professional. "Caleb, I think we need to reschedule our discussion. This seems like a family matter that requires privacy." "No, wait," Caleb started. But Richard was already guiding his wife away, the $15 million deal walking away because his personal disaster had exploded in public. Alyssa watched them go, then turned back to Caleb with theatrical sympathy. "Oops, that is unfortunate. You did that on purpose," Caleb said, his voice hollow. "Did I? I thought I was being supportive." She smiled, and for the first time Naomi saw the calculation behind it, saw the manipulation that had been there all along. "But since they are gone, you might as well actually talk to her. Is this not what you have been wanting?" Caleb looked at Naomi with something like desperation. "Can we talk? Just 5 minutes." "No. I have been in therapy. I am working on myself. I understand what I did was—" "I do not care." Naomi adjusted Lily's position in the carrier, protective and final. "I do not care about your therapy or your growth or whatever narrative you have built to feel better about abandoning us. You had 30 days to decide if you wanted to be a father. You chose not to. That is the end of the story. But she deserves—" She deserves a father who chose her, who wanted her, who did not need legal deadlines and ultimatums to do the right thing. Naomi's voice cracked slightly. She deserves better than you could ever give her. Lily chose that moment to make a sound, a babbling string of consonants that was not quite words but was absolutely language. "Mama," she said clearly, patting Naomi's chest with one small hand. It was the first time she had said it that distinctly, the first real word. And it happened here, in this moment, in front of the man who would never hear it again. Naomi felt tears sting her eyes. "That is right, baby girl. Mama is here." Caleb watched this exchange like it was physically painful, his face crumpling in a way Naomi had never seen before, and she felt a savage satisfaction at his suffering. Good. Let him see what he had lost. Let him understand that these mundane, precious moments were gone forever because of his choices. Alyssa, sensing the attention had shifted away from her, tried one more time. "You know, Naomi, you are being pretty cruel. He made mistakes, but he is trying." "And who are you?" Ruth snapped. "The woman he was sleeping with while my daughter was pregnant." Alyssa's smile faltered. "That is not... We were in love. You were convenient," Naomi said, "and now you are not even that. Look at him. Does he look like a man in love with you? Or does he look like a man finally understanding what he destroyed?" Caleb closed his eyes, and that was answer enough. Alyssa's expression twisted into something ugly. "You self-righteous. You think you are so perfect? You abandoned him too." "I left someone who abandoned me first," Naomi said. "That is called self-preservation." "I am sorry," Caleb said. And he sounded it, genuinely, devastatingly sorry. "I am so sorry for all of it. I know you are." Naomi looked at him one last time. Really looked. Seeing not the man she had married, but the stranger he had become. "But sorry does not change anything. Have a good life, Caleb. Just have it somewhere else." She turned and walked away. Ruth beside her, Claire trailing with wide eyes. Behind them, Caleb stood frozen in the crowd. And Naomi did not look back. If you are listening right now, and you have ever had to walk away from someone while they watched, you know how hard that is. You know the strength it takes to keep moving forward when every cell in your body is screaming at you to turn around. But sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is keep walking. The drive back to Claire's house was silent. Lily had fallen asleep in her car seat, completely unaware of the weight of what had just happened. Ruth kept stealing glances at Naomi from the passenger seat. Claire drove carefully, like the car might explode if she made any sudden movements. "Are you okay?" Ruth finally asked. Naomi stared out the window at the Tampa skyline passing by. "I do not know. I thought I was ready. I thought if I ever saw him again, I would be stronger. Instead, I just feel..." "What?" "Tired." Naomi closed her eyes. "I feel tired, Mom. I have been carrying this weight for over a year, and seeing him just reminded me how heavy it still is. You were incredible back there. I was barely holding it together." Ruth reached over and squeezed her hand. "That is what incredible looks like sometimes, sweetheart. Holding it together when everything inside you is falling apart." In Miami, Caleb was falling apart in a different way. The Sanderson deal was dead. Richard had not even bothered to reschedule. His assistant sent a brief email the next morning declining to move forward at this time. $15 million gone because his personal life had exploded in public. And Alyssa had made sure of it. Back at his apartment after the market disaster, Caleb finally said what he should have said months ago. "We are done. Completely. Permanently." Alyssa's smile had turned ugly. "You are seriously doing this again? Over her? She left you, Caleb. She is gone, and you are throwing away what we have because you cannot let go of some woman who clearly does not want you. This is not about her. It is about you, about what you did today. What I did? I was being honest. Those investors deserved to know who they were getting into business with. You sabotaged a $15 million deal because you were jealous. I was not jealous. Alyssa had grabbed her things, movements sharp and furious. I was protecting you, showing you that you do not need that deal. You do not need any of them. You just need me. That is not protection. That is control. And I am done with it. You are going to regret this. Her eyes had gone cold, calculating. I will make sure of it. She was not bluffing. Over the next month, Alyssa waged a campaign of destruction, spreading rumors through Miami society, telling anyone who would listen that Caleb was unstable, that he had abandoned his pregnant wife, that he was having a breakdown, that he was not someone to be trusted with business or relationships or anything else. The whispers followed him everywhere. Business associates who used to return his calls stopped answering. Investors who had been interested in his projects suddenly had other priorities. Even people he considered friends started keeping their distance. Greg Hartwell, his business partner, pulled him aside one afternoon. I have had 3 different people ask me if you are okay, and not in a concerned way. In a should we be worried about doing business with him way. Alyssa, probably, but the damage is done. You need to get your life together, Caleb. Publicly. Show people you are stable. Professional, not whatever disaster she is painting you as. How am I supposed to do that when she has been telling everyone I am crazy by proving her wrong? Greg paused. And maybe by actually dealing with the Naomi situation instead of pretending it does not exist. That night, Caleb started seeing Dr. Barbara Hoffman. She was a therapist his mother had recommended months ago, before she stopped speaking to him. An older woman with silver hair and sharp eyes who did not buy any of his excuses and had no patience for self-pity. You talk about Naomi like she is a problem that needs solving, Dr. Hoffman observed during their second session. But she is not a problem. She is a person you hurt who made a decision to protect herself. I know that. Do you? Because you keep framing this as something that happened to you. She left. She will not answer. She disappeared. What about what you did to her? Caleb shifted uncomfortably. I made mistakes. Mistakes are leaving the milk out. You made choices. Conscious, deliberate choices that prioritized your comfort over her well-being. So, what am I supposed to do? Just accept that I will never see my kid? You might have to. And maybe that is the consequence you need to sit with. The sessions were brutal. Every week, Dr. Hoffman forced him to confront aspects of himself he had spent years avoiding. His selfishness, his fear of responsibility, his pattern of running from difficult situations instead of facing them. But slowly, over months, something began to shift. Caleb sold the penthouse. Too many ghosts. Too many memories of the man he used to be. He moved into a smaller condo in Coconut Grove. Something manageable. Something that did not echo with emptiness. He stepped back from the business. Let Greg take the lead while he worked part-time as a consultant. The pace was slower. The pressure less suffocating. He had the time to think now. Time to sit with discomfort instead of running from it. And he started volunteering with a youth mentorship program on weekends. Not to redeem himself, he was not naive enough to think good deeds could erase bad choices, but because showing up for other people's kids felt like the only way to acknowledge the one he had abandoned. The only way to channel the love he would never get to give Lily into something that might actually matter. You are becoming a better man. His mother told him one evening, nearly a year after the Tampa incident. They had started talking again, slowly, carefully, not because you have been forgiven, but because you have accepted you will not be. It was the closest thing to peace he had found. 3 years after the Tampa farmers market, Naomi's life had transformed beyond recognition. Lily was nearly 4 now. A whirlwind of energy with her mother's dark curls and a personality entirely her own. She said no constantly, loved blueberries, hated socks, had an opinion about everything from breakfast cereal to bedtime stories, and had Ruth completely wrapped around her tiny finger. The design firm had promoted Naomi twice. She was now a senior partner. Her name on the letterhead, Miller and Associates. She had taken back her maiden name when the divorce was officially finalized. They had their own house now, a modest 3-bedroom with a fenced yard and a maple tree Lily loved to climb. Naomi's name on the deed. Hers. Completely and entirely hers. The village was complete. Ruth, still healthy, still fierce. Elise, now engaged to a kind man who adored her. Becca Lawson and her son Noah, practically family. Life was good, and then came the revelations. The first one arrived in the form of a news alert. Alyssa Monroe arrested for insurance fraud. Naomi had been drinking coffee when she saw the headline. Nearly choked, she clicked through to the article. Multiple victim complaints, fake injury claims. A pattern of targeting wealthy men, investigations spanning 3 states. The twist that made everything click into place. Alyssa had not just been a mistress, she had been a con artist. Caleb had been a mark. The affair had been calculated from the beginning. She had done this to 3 other men before him. Naomi sat with that information for a long moment. She was not sure how to feel. Vindicated, because the woman who had helped destroy her marriage was finally facing consequences. Angry because Caleb had been so easily manipulated. Relieved because karma had finally caught up. Mostly, she just felt tired. Tired of anything connected to that chapter of her life. But the second revelation hit harder. Jennifer Patterson, her attorney, called on an otherwise ordinary Tuesday. "I should tell you something." Jennifer's voice was careful. After the 30-day deadline passed, Caleb's attorney reached out. Naomi's stomach dropped. He contested? No. That is the thing. He did not contest. He just asked if there was a way to set up an anonymous trust for Lily's education. No contact, no claim to her life, just contribution. Naomi sat down slowly. He wanted to give her money? Anonymously. Jennifer paused. "I told him you had declined support. He asked if he could donate to a children's charity in her name instead. Did he?" "He did. Every month since the deadline passed. Never missed one." The weight of this information settled over Naomi like something she could not quite name. He had not fought, but he had not forgotten. He had found a way to give without taking. Staying away was its own form of love. A flawed, imperfect love, but love nonetheless. She did not tell Lily. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But she knew now. The man who left was not quite the same as the man who stayed away. The third revelation came from an unexpected place. Naomi had been going through old boxes in the garage when she found it. A letter, written in Caleb's handwriting, dated 2 weeks before she discovered the affair. It had been tucked into a box of things she had grabbed hastily when packing. She had never noticed it before. Her hands trembled as she unfolded it. If you are reading this, I probably never had the courage to say it out loud. I am not asking for forgiveness. I do not deserve it. I am asking you to know that for one moment, before I ruined everything, I was exactly the man you thought you married. I have been falling apart for months. I cannot sleep. I cannot focus. I feel like I am suffocating under the weight of who I am supposed to be. The successful businessman, the perfect husband, the soon-to-be father. Alyssa makes me forget all of it. And I hate myself for needing that escape. I know this will destroy us. I know you will hate me. I know I deserve it. But I want you to know that I loved you. Past tense now, maybe. Or present tense, twisted into something unrecognizable. I hope you find someone who stays the man I should have been. I hope Lily never knows the weight of what I could not carry. And I hope, somewhere, you are happy. Not happy despite me, just happy. That is all I have left to give. Naomi sat on the garage floor for a long time. She did not cry, did not rage, just sat with the weight of words he had never been brave enough to say. Some apologies arrive too late to change anything, but they can still close a door that was never quite shut. She folded the letter carefully, put it back in the box, and walked back into her life. If you have ever received an apology that came too late to matter, you know what this feels like. You know that sometimes understanding does not lead to forgiveness. And that is okay. Understanding and forgiveness are two different things. You can have one without the other. 7 years. That was how long it had been since the night Caleb walked out of the penthouse. Since Naomi packed 2 suitcases and drove 8 hours north. Since she became a different person entirely. Lily was 7 now. First grade at Asheville Elementary, missing her 2 front teeth, a whirlwind of energy and opinions who had somehow inherited both her mother's stubbornness and her grandmother's sharp wit. The elementary school parking lot buzzed with the controlled chaos of pickup time. Naomi pulled into her usual spot, the one near the maple tree that provided shade in summer. Through the windshield, she could see the double doors where first graders would flood out any minute. She had been doing this for over a year now. The school run, the packed lunches, the homework battles, the endless cycle of motherhood that was simultaneously exhausting and exhilarating. 5 years since she had been promoted to partner, her name on the letterhead now. Clients who specifically requested her. A reputation built on talent and hard work and showing up even when it was hard. 4 years since she had taken back her maiden name. Naomi Miller. It felt right, like reclaiming something she had lost, or maybe just becoming someone new. When the doors opened, children poured out like a wave, backpacks bouncing, voices carrying across the asphalt, the particular chaos of elementary school dismissal. Lily emerged third. Her backpack was almost as big as she was. Dark curls pulled into 2 puffball pigtails. A gap-toothed grin spreading across her face when she spotted Naomi's car. She ran over, yanking open the back door with the confidence of a kid who had never doubted she was loved. "Mom, guess what happened at recess?" "What happened, baby?" "Tommy Henderson said his dad could beat up anybody's dad." And I said, "I do not have a dad, but my mom could design a better house than his dad." And then he said, "That is not the same thing." But Mrs. Patterson said, "Actually, it kind of is." Naomi met her daughter's eyes in the rearview mirror, watching for pain or confusion. But Lily just grinned, gap-toothed and proud, completely unbothered. They had had the talk last year when Lily started asking why some kids had dads and she did not. Naomi had kept it simple, age-appropriate, honest without being cruel. "Your father and I were married once, but we were not good for each other. Before you were born, we decided to live separately. He has his life, and we have ours. That does not mean anything is wrong with you. It just means our family looks different, and different is okay." Lily had processed this with the straightforward logic of a 6-year-old. "So it is like Emma, whose parents are divorced?" "Sort of like that." "Okay, can I have a snack?" And that had been it. No trauma, no crisis. Just acceptance and a request for goldfish crackers. "Mrs. Patterson sounds smart," Naomi said now, pulling out of the parking lot. "She is," she said. "Families come in all shapes, and mine is a triangle. You, me, and Grandma Ruth. I like that. Me too. Can we stop at the park for 20 minutes? Then we need to get home for your homework. Deal." That evening, after dinner and homework, and the usual bedtime routine, Lily asked a question Naomi had been preparing for. "Mom, do you think my dad ever thinks about me?" They were sitting on Lily's bed, the nightlight casting soft shadows. stuffed animals arranged in precise order, because Lily had opinions about everything, including how her animals should sleep. Naomi's first instinct was to lie, to protect, to say something comforting and vague. But she had promised herself she would never lie to her daughter about the hard things. "I think he probably does," Naomi said carefully. "But thinking about someone is not the same as being there for them. Why is he not here then?" "Because being a parent is hard work. It means showing up even when you are tired, even when it is not fun, even when no one is watching. Your father was not ready to do that work." Lily processed this, her expression serious in a way that reminded Naomi painfully of Caleb. "Was it because of me?" "No, baby. Never because of you." Naomi pulled her close, breathing in the smell of strawberry shampoo and playground dirt. It was about him not being ready. "You are wonderful and perfect and deserving of someone who shows up. He could not be that person, so he made the choice to stay away." "Do you hate him?" The question surprised her. Naomi had to sit with it for a moment, searching for the truth. "No, I do not hate him. I am sad about how things happened, and I am angry about some of his choices. But hate takes too much energy, and I would rather spend that energy on you." Lily hugged her tight. "I am glad I have you, Mom. I am glad I have you too, sweetheart. So, so glad." Later that night, after Lily was asleep, Naomi stood on the back porch. The yard was quiet, Lily's swing set silhouetted against the evening sky, fireflies blinking in the grass. Ruth stepped outside, wrapped in a cardigan. "Cannot sleep, just thinking about how far we have come, how different everything is." Ruth sat beside her. "Any regrets?" Naomi considered the question. Really considered it. "I regret the years I wasted. I regret that Lily has to answer questions about her father. But I do not regret leaving, and I do not regret any of this." She gestured at the house, the yard, the life they had built. "This is home, real home, the kind built on choice, not obligation." Ruth squeezed her hand. "You did good, sweetheart. You took something broken and made it whole. We made it whole. You, me, Lily, all of us together." There was a new addition to their village now, Daniel Mercer, an architect she had met through a work collaboration. Single dad, with a 6-year-old daughter named Emma. He was patient, present, showed up without being asked, remembered things she mentioned once and never repeated, listened when she talked about her work, asked questions that showed he actually cared about the answers. Lily adored him. Emma had become her best friend. Daniel had asked Naomi a question last week. Simple, but significant. "I know your history. I know trust is hard for you." "It is not hard," Naomi had said. "It is just earned. Then let me earn it. Dynamd. One day at a time. No rush." She was still figuring out what that meant. Still learning to trust again. But for the first time in 7 years, she was open to trying. The next morning, Lily came bounding into the kitchen with a proclamation. "Mom, Tommy Henderson said I am weird because I do not have a dad." Naomi's heart clenched. "What did you say?" "I said I have a mom, a grandma, aunties, and now Daniel. That is 4 people. Tommy only has 2, so actually I have more family than him." Naomi tried not to laugh. "That is mathematically correct. I know, I am smart." "Yes, you are, baby girl. Yes, you are." That evening, Naomi sat on the porch again, watching the sunset paint the mountains gold. 7 years ago, she had been 6 months pregnant, abandoned, broken. She could have stayed broken, could have waited for Caleb to fix it, could have let his choices define her story. Instead, she had chosen herself, chosen her daughter, chosen to show up every single day, even when it was hard. That was the real victory, not revenge, not vindication, not the destruction of the person who hurt her, Just a quiet evening on a back porch, daughter safe inside, future wide open. Just surviving until survival became living, and living became thriving. If you are listening to this story and you are in the middle of your own nightmare, I want you to know something. It will not always feel like this. The weight you are carrying right now, it will get lighter. Not because the pain disappears, but because you will get stronger. Strong enough to carry it. Strong enough to build something new. You deserve someone who chooses you every single day. And if that person has not shown up yet, choose yourself. That is not giving up, not giving up. That is the beginning. Daniel's truck pulled into the driveway, Emma tumbling out before the engine stopped, running to find Lily. He walked up the porch steps, sat beside her, took her hand without asking. Good day? Better now. They sat together as the fireflies came out, watched the girls play in the fading light. Let the silence fill with everything that did not need to be said. And Naomi thought, this is more than enough. This is everything.